Re-rolling. Okay, welcome back. Our next agenda item is an update on the pandemic response. Dr. Godfrey, we'll turn the time to you.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to, first of all, just say this has been a very difficult year for everyone. And I want to acknowledge that. It's just everyone's working really hard, and it's almost like you're on a road trip. It's the "Are we there yet?" And you thought you were on a 6-hour road trip, which was unexpected to start with. You woke up and you were in the car on your way down the road, and 6 hours later you're saying, "Are we there yet?" And we've got untold hours ahead of us and plenty of road ahead. So I know that's a stress, and people have just done tremendous work in the face of that stress. So I'm grateful to everyone and to families for pitching in and everything that folks are doing. The impact of the pandemic, it runs very deep, and that's something that's talked a lot about. I'm not the first to say that, but I think behavior has shifted dramatically in the classroom. I think that think about going from 5th grade to 7th grade without a normal year. Think how much you changed from 5th to 7th grade, and your perspectives changed. And when those perspectives are shaped by high absenteeism and just impacts on the way that you're able to interact with people, and then imagine being the teacher managing that, or going from 3rd to 5th grade, or just, you can think of any of those spans, just how much that changes. Now for me, 2 years feels like a long time. It just feels like a huge amount of time. But to a child for whom that's 20% of their life, that's really significant. I don't like to point out that I'm 5 times older than our 5th graders, but there's a significant impact when that percentage of your life is impacted, and that stress and strain gets passed on to every employee we have. And so I just want to start with that I know it's been very difficult for any number of reasons, and I'm just grateful to for everyone's hard work and just doing what they can. The mask mandate was one more aspect of this to manage. It was another Friday afternoon announcement, which was reminiscent of our March 13th, 2020 announcement. But I also understand that things have to happen when they have to happen. And I'm not critical of that. It's just that things happen, and then, you scramble the jets, as Scott likes to say, and we do our best to try to convey timely information and to make that happen quickly. So information came in waves, where we sent an initial communication on Saturday, a follow-up communication first thing Monday morning after we received clarification through a press release from the county, and then further context and more information about how to get masks and that sort of thing later in the day. So we do require that parents sign that form, and the reason for parents to sign the form is to not overburden an already taxed medical system. But they do have to sign the form, and they do have to indicate a reason, one of the 3 reasons that have been endorsed by the county health department. Parents can sign that. They indicate the reason. They have to file that with the school. We have an employee process where they just have to contact their supervisor to work that out, if they are in one of those 3 categories as well. The implementation of that was quick, as we've had to be on a lot of things. we'll continue to work on that through the 30 days. The other thing we have to implement is a test to stay protocol. The constraints being experienced by the county are in staff and materials. And part of what happens, and I invite Mr. Anderson to jump in at any point, is that you have every school reset. Every school in the county resets over winter break. And so all of those numbers, as they climb together. So it's no longer staggered. It's like an elected board where everyone was elected in the same year, and all of a sudden, boom, everything hits at once. So we all started at the same time in the midst of a wave, and those waves are crashing. And so then we see schools throughout the county all need testing all at the same time, and it's required by code. So there isn't the opportunity for flexible solutions is not there. So the difficulty is, how do you provide tests and testers for large numbers of students who are required to be tested by law? So we have 2 schools where that is scheduled, but the details of that are always something we have to watch because of the strain on resources that I described. We have a number of other schools that are on the cusp of qualifying. We do have a 4-day weekend coming up, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, which may help with, create something of a reset with students not at school, but that's the difficulty that we see.
Can I ask you a question on testing? I've had someone ask me,
Sure.
why do we have to wait for the health department to test? Why can't we do the testing?
Because we don't have the tests or the people to do it. And every district is in that circumstance. And it's the responsibility of the county health department to do that testing. This is different also. They're hazmat head to toe when they do that testing, because this is a more contagious variant. And so we're not equipped, and we don't have the test, but we also haven't been expected to be equipped or to have the test. That's not our role. Although we do help as necessary, and that will be necessary. The other impact that we've had is that the county has made the decision not to contact trace at any level. A letter goes out to the class, but there's not contact tracing. Part of that is a staffing issue, but part of it also is that they didn't see a lot of result from the effort, if that makes sense, because with the high level of it's just so contagious that it's difficult to make contact tracing worthwhile. The other issue is just the staffing. We are down staff every day, and we extended the substitute incentive to try to help cover that, but we've had large numbers of teachers out. We've had large numbers of, today we had, let me get the right number here. We had we had 15 custodians out, I believe. And we had 32 routes that had to be covered. 22 positions are being covered in transportation by mechanics and other staff that aren't drivers. How many? 22. And we had, I think, 32 drivers out. So 32 drivers absent, 15 custodians. One day we had nearly double the teachers out that we normally do. And our substitutes have done a great job. We talk about when we don't have substitutes, but I'm really grateful for when we do. And our substitutes really stepped up with the bonus in place and during the holiday season and have continued to this month. So that's the other impact is the staff that we're short. And staffing is all we do. It's human interaction. That's at the heart of what we do. So that's very difficult. Now, because of the difficulties getting tests, we've extended the isolation leave, first of all, so that if someone is ill with COVID, that's an employee, they have the isolation leave that they need until they qualify to return. They may qualify after 5 days because they have no symptoms. They may qualify after 10 days if they have symptoms. They may still be ill. So we allow that flexibility from 5 to 10 days on what their when they qualify to return.
What if they are home taking care of a COVID patient? How does that, an employee has to stay out to take care of, let's say, their child. How does extended isolation leave add into that, or doesn't it?
The isolation leave is for those who are actually ill, and part of that has involved doctor verification or a certain type of test. We really want to move toward allowing for a home test to initiate that with a follow-up when they're able to do that. That's difficult to do. If someone is taking care of a child that has COVID, then that leave has applied to them. We've extended that same type of leave. That was in place previously as well. The isolation leave has specifically changed in its length because of the difference in the length of isolation required. So the immediate caretaker. Any other questions? What else can I address for you?
Are today's numbering triggering any more? Are today's numbers triggering any more test days? Like 3 more?
Yeah, we had 3 more high schools hit the threshold today, and we anticipate several schools hitting it later this week if the current trajectory of cases holds true.
In the world can we test all? How can we test 5 high schools all within a few days of each other?
The law doesn't stipulate when you test. It only stipulates at this point that we test. And so the health department has told us that it could be a ways off. It
So
could be that
we keep attending school until
Correct.
we can test.
yes, and even
And
during
then when we test, anyone who's positive starts the day they get tested, right?
correct.
That's
The
positive.
day you get tested
The
is
day
when
you
the
get
5 days
tested.
start, right? And that's over 7,000 students for those listening at home.
Right.
So far.
And that's with the 3 high schools that we added today. But I anticipate some other secondary and elementary schools
Right.
being on the cusp in the coming days. Again, there's, with legislation and with code in place, then you don't really have a lot of flexibility to.
Unintended consequences.
So conceivably, we could have a school that's 2-3 weeks out.
Taken to an extreme, yes, that is conceivable.
So the county tells us what days that school tests.
Yes.
That is not our choice.
We've worked with
We
them.
work
They-
with them.
They give us the windows, and then
We work with them.
They've been. I mean, they're on this. They're experiencing the same shortages, the same issues as we are, and they've been really good to work with, and they're under the same constraints, except they're being pulled to other districts who are also experiencing similar test to stay threshold hits.
We've been asked by several, since we can't get the test to stay right away, can't we just go virtual? Dr. Godfrey, you and I have had this discussion, but do you want to explain the law surrounding that?
Yes, in order for us to go virtual more than one day a week, in other words, we are required to, let me phrase it another way. We are required to provide 4 days of in-person instruction per week unless we have the permission of 4 people, and all 4 people. The state superintendent, the president of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, and the governor. If those 4 agree that we can go virtual for more than one day a week, then we'd be able to do so. But otherwise, we do not have that flexibility. That is also in code.
Can you name those 4 again for me?
The governor, Speaker of the House, President of the Senate, and the state superintendent for public instruction.
But we could go virtual one day each week.
We could go virtual one day in a week. Yeah.
Do you feel empowered to make that decision and make that call if you felt like the district needed that?
No.
You would feel like the board would need to make that decision?
Yes, but you can instruct me otherwise. But based on the discussions, I wouldn't feel like that was my decision unless you specifically gave me that authority.
Are you talking specifically about going virtual one day a week?
Or any day. Like if you had a day where I don't have enough teachers or I don't have enough custodians to clean the building, I've got to call a virtual day today. I want you to have the authority to make that call. In our discussions about pandemic, you had a lot of that authority in the past.
Yeah.
If you feel like you don't have that authority, I would move this board gives him that authority to take advantage of that one day a week.
At various points, the board has made that decision. I have made that decision throughout phases of last year. So I'm not saying the board hasn't given me the flexibility I need. I'm saying there isn't a level of clarity that would make me feel comfortable doing that right now. But if you want to give that clarity, then we can certainly move forward with that. Because that is what I referenced earlier. There's a day I'd like to consider changing, and I want to knock that around with you a little bit. And if you decide to authorize me to make a final call on that or some other virtual days, we can do that.
President, I for one would like to authorize the superintendent to be able to make that call on not only a district level, but a school level. That if there is a particular school that doesn't have the staff to perform their basic functions, that he could move that one school to a virtual day to alleviate that situation. That would be my request.
So you talked a little bit about we have an upcoming shorter school week. And so would it be in the realms of that 4 days of instruction? How does that work when you have days off? Does that make sense? So if
Say
we
that
have
again.
the 17th and 18th off,
Right.
could we take a virtual day that week?
How does the law apply when there's not 5 school days in a week?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it says you have to have 4 in-person days. Well, there are weeks where we don't, simply because, as you indicated, we have days off. So I think the intent of the 1 and 4 was to allow us and other districts to continue with virtual Fridays going forward if that's what we chose to do. So I think if we didn't do more than 1 virtual day per week, I feel that that would be in keeping with the intent of the law. I would feel comfortable with that. Mr. Van Komen perhaps should weigh in on whether that is aligned.
That's certainly a reasonable interpretation.
So, for instance, if we were to say
Wednesday.
January 14th is a virtual day, January 19th is a virtual day, those are 2 separate calendar weeks, but it would give us a longer break. Would it?
Right.
That would be allowable.
the potential consideration there would be, in regards to test to stay, which a lot of people have on their minds, would that reset the dashboard and allow, because it's 5 days and because it's now required for people to sit out 5 days, would that constitute a reset situation legally? I think that is a question.
Correct.
So how does the board feel about having or directing Dr. Godfrey to be able to make the decision
My only
school by
hesi-
school basis or district-wide basis about converting a day to virtual?
my only hesitation is at what point will that happen? I mean, we're putting a lot of pressure on him to make that determination, and is it a set percentage, if you will, or a set number? I know I don't have the expertise to do that by any means, but it's kind of putting a lot of pressure on him. That's my only hesitation. I mean, I'd like to give him the authority to do that, but that's my only hesitation.
I would say if you need a heavy lift, we'd be happy to make the heavy lift, but to the degree that you feel confident, I would like the superintendent to have the authority to move forward in that direction. If he feels like there's a situation that would require a heavy lift and the board should make that heavy lift, I am happy to do so. But when he doesn't, or if he doesn't, I'd say I would like him to have the authority to do that. And I would like to take advantage of those virtual days when our staff can't meet if we can't perform our basic functions because too many people are gone, then why are we holding school that day anyway? We're not delivering the education that the public has entrusted us to deliver that day.
Are our schools nimble enough right now with going virtual that they could say, well, we woke up this morning and we have too many people calling in, today is virtual? Because we still have to be providing an educational experience, right?
Schools can do that because they have done it in the past. I think most schools have done it in the past, most secondary schools in particular, and can have a synchronous day. The difficulty is for parents, and especially at the elementary level. It doesn't, elementary teachers have done an incredible job of it. But at the elementary level, or in areas where devices aren't plentiful at home, that instant turnaround is difficult. So I don't know how frequently we would do that with very short notice. I think that would only be in a situation where we had a very extraordinary circumstance.
Yeah, I guess in my mind's eye, I can't really foresee a scenario like that where it would be that instantaneous. It would, from my perspective, and help me if this is how you, this school has been trending this way for a number of days, and we're still 3 or 4 days away from their projected staff being back. We need a break. I mean, it would be a little bit more.
Yeah, we have 10 people out in this level. We have 20 people out.
Yeah.
You have 25 teachers out at a high school or something, and you just say, we're going to get through a couple of days, and then we know they won't be back.
Right.
So then we're going to round out the week this way. Because sometimes, just the way this works, if people are out, sometimes you know they're going to be out for an extended period. So it probably wouldn't be something that would be that quick turnaround, although our schools have been very nimble, and as you know, we've made decisions in this room 9:30 at night, and there's a smooth transition to virtual the next day, and but I don't anticipate it looking like that.
I think it's harder. It's the families that aren't as nimble in many situations.
Yeah, it's the impact on families. Yes.
Yeah.
answer to your second question is yes. If the board wants us to do that, we can certainly calculate that again. And the first question I'll need you to restate because I'm not sure I captured exactly what you were looking for.
Last year we did a variety of virtual type days. Some of that, especially the secondary schools, even maybe elementaries that were out, because of high cases, we did a synchronous model where they signed on the computer during a certain time during their class,
Right.
which led kids to kind of stay more at their homes, being engaged, versus just kind of free for all. The other way would be kind of more of a flex Friday kind of idea where word's given, you can do it anytime that you want.
Yeah, I would anticipate that if we went virtual in a secondary school, that we would have synchronous instruction throughout the day. That was very successful. That was a successful way of approaching it. And sometimes you don't meet for the entire hour, but you always start the hour together. And then it puts students on a path so that they can stay caught up on their work.
I agree with that too. You're looking for a motion. I'll make a motion. President, I move that this board authorize the superintendent at his discretion to move a school individually or the district as a whole to a virtual, to take advantage of the 1 day a week we could have a virtual day.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Dunford and second by Mr. Young to
Could you
give
restate it?
the
Sorry.
superintendent the authority to move a school or the district as a whole to a virtual day for the 1 day a week that we are allowed if needed.
Can I speak to that motion?
Yes.
I was also hoping that we could give some direction to the superintendent to inquire from the state level, those people who are in charge of making that more than 1 day, what would really overrun the day of us. We're not the only district that has this problem right now. 1 day would help a lot, but there might be a situation that more than 1 day is needed. So I would hope that somebody, maybe it's even our legislative committee, could inquire about the current process to do so.
I had thought that too. Let's take this motion and then I'll let you make another motion. Okay. Any other discussion to the motion? I just want to go back to something Mr. Robinson said about looking at attendance rate. I think as a board, I don't need that if this is going to be your decision, but I would think that is something that you would definitely be looking at. If 50% of our students aren't there, it also makes it difficult for teachers to deliver instruction knowing that they're going to have to deliver it again when their 50% comes back. And so I think that is an important factor
Yes,
that would weigh into that decision.
I agree.
Okay, any other discussion to that motion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Do you have any questions about that or need any more clarification?
No. I think that gives me.
Would the board like access to that?
I'd be interested. I don't need it for decision making, but I'd be very interested in comparing what was last year. I'm not, in that the
I don't
county
either.
is now providing the numbers on the dashboard. I would not want to ask them to gather that information and add one more task to their list. They're not currently gathering that information. Are they not? Because I remember the discussions last year, our total absences is already a figure you can give us. Is that correct?
We have to track attendance. It would take some effort for us to provide dashboard information like we did in years past.
But as far as attendance goes, is there any level of data that's readily available, or would that all, I mean, just off of Skyward?
Can I just take a look at what that might require, and we can
Yeah.
provide that to the board? And I would just say this, if there's a school where you're hearing from folks and you want to get the data on that school, you can always contact me or Mr. Anderson, and we can get that for you. So I hesitate to make a promise not knowing exactly how much work is involved. So I appreciate that sentiment, but I also understand the need for information. So ask me anytime about any school, and we'll see how much information we can provide without undue burden on staff. Okay.
I have one question about test to stay, Superintendent.
Yes.
Maybe you've already said this, but does test to stay include testing all employees of the school?
No.
We offer it,
test.
yeah.
We offer it, but that's not part of the formula or the plan. But no one gets turned away.
Mr. Robinson, do you want to make a motion regarding directing Dr. Godfrey or giving him the discretion at what point he needs to make a phone call to the state superintendent about extending the 1 day a week virtual?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that Dr. Godfrey and his staff works with the state, county, and local districts in determining the chef, more education for existing staffers, including
Daryl, we lost you for just a minute.
I think the motion, when he comes back, could just be simplified to consider that as an alternative and look into it. I think the more specific, it limits actually what the superintendent and his staff could do.
That he has the, just to make sure he knows he has the authority to start asking the questions without coming to the board first.
If he's not back, I'll make the motion. I move that we authorize the superintendent to reach out to the powers that be so that he knows under what circumstances virtual days could be extended beyond the 1 day a week.
Okay, we'll give Mr. Robinson the second to that.
I guess, as a former, do you feel like you need that kind of authorization, or do you feel comfortable reaching out to him if you thought that was something that you'd like to explore?
It's nice to have that formally in place, that
Okay.
I'm authorized to do
It's
that,
nice
because
f-
it would be me reaching out to elected officials.
Yeah. It would be nice for you to be able to say, my board has requested.
Has authorized me to make this request
Yep.
based on this need. So that is helpful.
I'm back.
So would you second it, Daryl?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Is there any other discussion to that? Okay, so we have a motion to give Dr. Godfrey the authority to have those discussions with our other elected officials about the possibility of extending the 1 virtual day a week if needed. Did I state that correctly? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously.
A few questions if
Okay,
people are done. So I'm curious, I'm getting a lot of community feedback about the exemption process changes. What is the real percentage? How many exemptions did we receive? I'm gonna ask that first.
In some schools, we have only a handful. In some schools, we have dozens. And because this is a bit of a new We've had mask mandates before, but not quite like this. So there is a little bit of an implementation that takes place. And if we hear concerns, we follow up on those because really students have to have that exemption form in place with a reason stated signed by a parent if they're not wearing a mask.
And if I can follow up on that, I think teachers are feeling a little bit handcuffed here, that they don't know who has an exemption form and who doesn't. And the reports I'm receiving are that it's kind of becoming a joke, that students are like, nah, I'm exempt. What can teachers do? Should teachers be doing something? Is it just wear mask optional? How is that looking in classes?
It is not wear mask optional. It is wear mask unless you have an exemption on file. So if there's a student who's not wearing a mask in class, I would say that's a conversation with the administration. Just even an email to check if someone has an exemption in place.
So teachers should be able to ask students to put on a mask, and then if they say, I have an exemption,
Then they can verify that.
that teacher can verify it. And if they don't have an exemption, what is that process?
Then the administration would need to address that.
So the teacher
Student.
could send the student to the office.
They could ask for support from the administration, whether in whatever form that takes, depending on the age of the
Okay.
setup of the class.
And just for public knowledge, I've heard some people concerned that we're taking a position on whether or not mask wearing is appropriate. So would you just clarify that for all of our listeners? Do we have a position on whether a student should or should not be wearing a mask?
Every student is required to wear a mask unless they have an exemption on file. And there was certainly some implementation required, like I said, where this was just happening very quickly. But there has to be a specific reason stated on the form. The parent has to sign that form. The only thing that has changed is that it's a parent signature instead of a physician's signature. So every student that does not have an exemption form in place needs to be wearing a mask.
Thank you.
What else can I answer for you?
But it, help me understand what the expectation is for a teacher. Because frankly, if I'm a teacher, and this has been the year that it's been, and I'm just taxed to the max, and I'm doing everything I can to do what I've been paid to do and teach. I think if I were in the front line, my approach would be at the beginning of class to say, if you have an exemption on file, you cannot wear a mask. Everybody else needs to be masked. I'm leaving that. I mean, are we really expecting our teachers to say, I mean, what do we put? Because that would be my approach if I were in that classroom. I would.
Sure.
That's the last thing on my list of all the things to be the enforcer of said. I don't know if that would be where I would put my energy. And so, what is that true expectation?
If I'm hearing each of you right, I think what you've just demonstrated is the range of approaches and maybe emotions that you might feel as a teacher in front of the class. I understood Nikki's question to be, to what level do I have the right to enforce this in my class and expect it? And I understand your question to be, how much do I have to be an enforcer in my class?
Yeah.
And so I think if an individual teacher is wondering, they just need to talk to their administrator about the approach. What we can't have is, I don't care if you wear your mask in here or not. we can't have, because there is a mandate in place and there is an expectation. But do we expect teachers to take up their time and become the de facto enforcer in their class? No, it's a balance. It's a balance. So I think that just demonstrates how difficult it is to know exactly how to approach this.
And if I
And-
can
and
clarify, I wasn't saying that every teacher needed to do that, but that if a teacher feels like they are being taken advantage of, they should feel free
Yeah.
to do what they feel like is necessary to have control of their classroom.
I guess what I'm trying to say is if teachers have every right to expect that a student wears a mask, but they shouldn't feel that they have to be a deputized member of the health department either. And so there's this balance of creating a learning environment in your classroom where everyone can move forward. And that's the struggle. You've nailed it. This is so true and so often said that it's cliche now. But part of what's exhausting about being a teacher is the number of decisions you make in a day. The number of decisions you make in a day. Do I address this? Do I not? Are they learning that? Are they not? There's some misbehavior. Is it at the level where I stop and address it? Just thousands of decisions that are made, and this is just one more compounding layer. So teachers do have the authority to do what they need to, but they are not required to feel that they're an enforcement arm either. So we just want to support them in whatever they need to move forward comfortably in their class, and in a class that's comfortable for everyone to the greatest degree possible. Again, they're responsible for teaching, creating this environment and this isn't a jab at students or anything, but like I described, you go from 5th to 7th. Think about what you learn about behavior going from 5th grade to 7th grade and having 7 teachers instead of 1 or 2 or 3. And so there's just a lot of learning that has to take place about what's appropriate. So the mask is only a part of that. It's a complex job more than ever. It's tough.
Any other questions? Thank you. And this is tough. I've heard from a lot of teachers that these last 2 days have been extremely challenging. Probably their worst days of teaching. And that breaks my heart to hear.
Rule that's put in place that's related to health that everyone has a different opinion on, and there's a level of uncertainty that hasn't been there before, which just makes it all the more stressful. And so I think there's just a lot, and so I go back to what I said previously about staff doing, our faculty, staff members, just every single employee has it harder than ever, and they're doing a great job, and great things are happening despite it. And I appreciate the board's support. This discussion is really helpful to me, and the ability to put in some flexible Fridays if necessary, as needed based on school circumstances, and I'll be in close touch with the board on any of those decisions.
Or anything else we can do as a board to help our employees at this time? Wish I knew the answers.
Yeah, I have some thoughts, and we may be able to pursue some things based on this discussion, so thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. Anything else? Are we okay to move on?
So I'm just gonna call him so he can, he's got a question. Hi, I'm gonna put you on speakerphone for the board here, okay? Go ahead, Daryl.
You guys in that topic yet? I lost the sound. My question is that right now is a critical time to miss school. A lot of people are out. What are we doing to help kids at the end of the quarter and end of the semester to be able to make sure that they can succeed?
That's a teacher by teacher effort, and I've heard so many stories about teachers bending over backwards to make it work. And even though we haven't asked this of them, and I don't expect it of them, some teaching virtually and in person simultaneously, just being really flexible with students, and flexibility, which we have lauded for good reason, and being nimble and flexible and adjusting and making these decisions, it takes tremendous energy. It takes tremendous energy, and all of our employees take their jobs so seriously that they've really stepped up and been creative in addressing what you just mentioned, Daryl. So I have a lot of confidence in our employees and our teachers to address those types of circumstances. Of course, always to parents, contact the teacher. If you need some additional help, a counselor can help support you through.
Thank you, good question.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay.
I got it. Yeah, thank you.
All right, our next agenda item is open meeting law training, something that we are required to be trained on every year as a board. Woohoo! Well, yes, so excited. We'll turn the time to Mr. Paul Van Komen, our legal counsel, for that.
Thank you. I know by now most of you have had lots of opportunity to receive your training. You can take courses online as well. You've been provided with the updated Open Meetings Handbook. Each year we update that. When the legislature makes changes, we'll again update that and provide that to you. You can ask me with any questions that you have. I am sensitive to your time. I know you're well versed in this, and we deal with these on an ongoing basis. So if you have any questions, otherwise I would say you're receiving that training on a regular basis and have this year. I have a PowerPoint if you want, but I don't want to put you through that. I could also do some quizzes, but you can do those all on your own time.
Does anyone have any questions about open meeting law? I appreciate the booklet that we have, that both paper copy and electronic copy. I refer to it regularly.
So why is the decision-making body of the land, the legislature, exempt from this statute?
Because
Why are
they write the law.
Why are they able to meet in closed caucus with a majority of the decision makers? Why are they able to do it and no other public body is?
Because they write the law. Those are policy. You're absolutely right. They can do it under the law.
Sad experience. Excuse me.
Any other questions about the Open Meeting Act? Okay, well, thank you for doing that. And thank you to our district team for all they've done to help us be even more open and transparent these last couple of years as we started streaming and becoming even more accessible to the public. All right, our next agenda item is a debrief on the Utah School Boards Association Conference. Utah School Boards is something that this board belongs to, and they do provide professional development opportunities for us. And one of those, or the biggest professional development opportunity, is the annual conference that took place this last Thursday through Saturday. And several board members were able to attend that. It really was a great conference. We had some great speakers. We have classes that we can choose to go to, and learn different things and get at different ideas about ways we can improve and do things better. It's also a great opportunity to talk with other board members across the state and find out things that they're doing and share ideas with each other. So as a way to be accountable, we've asked the board members that participated in that to just give a little debrief, a couple of things that they learned at that conference. Is there anyone that would like to start? You want to start, Ms. Richards?
Sure. That way I have first dibs on the classes, right? I think one of the things that, one of the classes and sessions that was really important to me was our keynote speaker, David Horsiger, and he brought up the fact that trust is vital in any organization, any team, any committee. You have to be able to trust the members in that body. And as trust increases, we build on consistency. And he also gave like eight pillars with trust in leadership. And those 8 pillars are clarity, compassion, character, competency, commitment, connection, contribution, and consistency. And I thought all of those pillars, I could just visualize that those are so important in holding up the leadership role. And so that was probably one of the best things that I heard that day. The other thing was John Dougal, our state auditor, brought up the fact, well, he gave a class called Project Kids. And his main point was, where does the money go? And we should all be trying to get the money down to the students rather than the other direction. And he gave a lot of really good support materials to that. And so I really liked those 2 classes.
And that class on Project Kids too, that was really interesting. There's data available to the public. It's on the state auditor's website, auditor.utah.gov, and it's called Project Kids. And if you haven't had a chance to look at that, there's some really interesting information that you can drill down for different schools and different districts. A lot of it's publicly available. They're also working on, even more data that's available within the school district. Thank you. Nikki?
One of the overreaching threads, I think, that kind of wove through the whole conference had to do with just what Ms. Richards talked about, building trust, and also building resiliency. I think our communities, our employees, we're all exhausted, and we need to know how to be resilient. So I really enjoyed a breakout session by Stuart Jones. He's the Vice President of Advancement and Enrollment at Southern Utah University. And he talked a little bit about resilient strategies and ways that we can develop that grit that is necessary in the world that we live in. And some of the things that I thought were really interesting were, at one point he said, the old adage, never let them see you sweat, is gone. That what our world needs right now is vulnerability and the willingness to take off the mask, if you will. So, in that class, we had a really poignant activity where we each received a handout with a number of items, and you could just click a check mark next to any of the items that applied to you, and they were vulnerable items. Things like, I hate my body, or I have been a victim of rape or sexual assault, ranging all the way to, I've spent too much time on social media. Just a huge gamut of really searching questions. And then he gave us the opportunity to crumple up our paper, throw it into a waste basket, and then he mixed them around and redistributed the paper. So we were now in the position of representing another person. And he invited us to stand if the statement applied to the person we were representing. It was powerful to see that on most of the questions, the majority of the room was standing. And on every question, at least someone was standing, even in a small breakout room. And he just asked the question about, why do we work so hard to try to cover our vulnerabilities? And when the fact is that most of the people in the room are probably experiencing a similar thing. It was something that really struck me as we talk about making sure that people feel safe in our meetings, that we create an environment where we are able to speak openly, and that every voice can be heard in that environment. And I really hope that that's a goal that we're striving towards as a district. When we aren't afraid to let people see us sweat, when we're willing to take off our own masks, I think that we take a step towards creating that kind of setting in our district. I think that we have classrooms where that's happening, and I hope that we can take that example in our interactions with our communities and be willing to say, yeah, we kind of blew it on that one, that we're not infallible and it's okay. And then going back to what Ms. Richards said, the best way that he told us to rebuild trust is to put yourself back in another vulnerable situation and show that you'll come through, to show that you've changed. And then just one more thing that I thought was really interesting in light of we're talking about creating safe spaces for people in our meetings, and I think that's the goal. But one of the breakout sessions talked about keeping public school board meetings safe, secure, and effective, and safety in our schools. And in that, many of the Davis School District representatives were speaking to the idea that they've taken some measures, and I understand that each school district is dealing with their own set of problems, but they've been taking some measures to make sure that they're keeping safety as a main concern in their district offices and in their board meetings. It just gave me a little bit of pause. Our district has been very intentional in the way that we've been trying to keep our students safe. And I hope that we'll take a minute to just glance at how are we doing keeping our district officials safe, and how are we doing making sure that when you walk into a school board room that it's a safe place. So I'm hopeful that that's something that we can circle back to at a future time. But it was a great conference. And I didn't even talk about the Iron Cowboy.
I know, I was waiting.
Oh, I would go on too long.
Daryl, do you have any you want to share?
Shocked that Nikki didn't talk about the Iron Cowboy.
I mean, I said grit and resilience.
That guy is crazy. Like, when you put your mind to something, I think you can do anything, and that's what he showed me. I had just an observation. I was out in the hall when one of the large singing groups, the Madrigals, were getting together, and I was just watching the youth, and they're carrying on as if, you know, they're not in the middle of a pandemic, and they're not in the middle of crisis in their lives. And I just think that we have really great young people, and I know that they're all dealing with tough situations right now, as we all are, but I think, enjoyed watching the youth in this conference. I agree with Marilyn with the trust conversation, that very first opening session. I think it's a book that we could all read, and it might be good to go back to, you know, what we were doing with book readings and stuff and begin with this one. But good conference overall. It was really nice to be able to talk to some counterparts in other districts and see how they're approaching similar things that we're doing. We have great school board members throughout the whole state, so thank you. That's about it.
Thank you. Nikki and I are reading the Iron Cowboys book.
Yeah, we are.
Picked up a copy of it.
A signed copy.
A signed copy.
To Dr. Godfrey and his cash carrying ways.
Yeah, the two big issues I agree of the conference were trust and resilience. And it's interesting, you know, a lot of the emails we've gotten recently, I mean, you can tell that we've lost some trust with the public, and I get it with this pandemic where things change all the time. Our information changes, and as we pass that along, and you know, people kind of have the misperception that we're just changing our minds all the time, and that's not really true. But there was just a lot of good information. I went to David Horsager's class too, and he talked a lot about clarity. One way we can regain trust back is making sure we have clarity, you know, good clarity in our messages to them. And one question he put up on the board was how. So we, you know, when we're giving a message and we think we're clear, go deeper, you know. How are you doing that? Well, how are you doing that? How are you doing that? Just keep going deeper until you're sure you've got your message clear. And then just the resilient thing too. Just the Iron Cowboy, he's done 50 marathons, 50 triathlons, Ironman triathlons in 50 states in 50 days. And then he went on and did 100. 101 here in Utah, but 100 days in a row. Broken back, hit by a car. I mean, and he just keeps going.
I have a similar streak of not doing triathlons.
We'll put you in the Guinness Book of World Records for that.
I've gone 50 years with no marathons or triathlons, and swimming only occasionally. So.
But you're still an Ironman to us.
There you
That's
go.
right.
There you
That's
go.
right. But just talk about adversity and how to deal with and push through adversity and focus on, you know, he said you can't control future events. All you can control is the next stroke. And it's hard. Lots of difficult things happen, and see it as an opportunity to learn and grow and move on, rather than just being caught up in adversity and problems. And I mean, he really inspired us to, you know, keep going, problem solve and move on, and realize that everyone makes mistakes, but don't let that stop you. Anyone else? Dr. Godfrey, do you have anything?
Yeah, there was the overarching theme of, like you talked about, resilience and building trust, which I thought was a really good combination. And it's helpful to talk with others who are similarly situated. And really, I think I've said this in the past, it's the side conversations, it's being able to pull superintendents together from the county to talk about certain things, and to chat with others who are in those circumstances and share ideas. I got a lot of great ideas just in side conversations and being able to ask people about things that I was aware they were doing in other districts. I always want to learn from that. And there were also great presentations about some health and wellness resources that we can tap into, and maybe some ways to manage social media in some different ways. So some great associations, great themes, and also just some good conversations about some nuts and bolts and some ideas that we were able to share. And it's great just to spend time together also in a setting where we have a chance to just associate under less formal circumstances. So it's nice.
Add?
I just concur. A lot of them, I will have to call out one. It's already been talked about, Nikki, but that session from the professor from SUU was fantastic. And that was very, very eye-opening. I think it was a good, a great exercise for humanity. And I really appreciated that, and seeing others' vulnerabilities and seeing it shared in such a way was great. The other classes, I mean, people talked about the others. I just wanted to call that one out.
Well, thank you. Thank you, all of those who took the time out of your busy lives to go and attend the conference, and we missed those of you that couldn't make it. Our next agenda item is board member and superintendent reports and comments. Let's start with any committee reports. Do you have anything from facilities?
Facilities will be meeting next Tuesday, and we are beginning the process of meeting with the Miller Group and South Jordan regarding the properties in West Daybreak, among the many other things we are doing.
Yes. Thank you. Finance?
Yes, we met last week, and we invited Ms. George to join us since Mr. Robinson could not be there. And we were able to fill her in on a few things that are important and upcoming. But two things that I will tell you, that we will have tax comparison presentation at our first meeting in February. Mr. Larson has worked very hard on getting some charts and some graphs and some information for us that we'll present then. The other thing is, as per board directive, we're working on the ethics policy. We're working on bringing that to the board hopefully soon also, probably in February, March. So.
And that first item you said, that's right along the lines of what we talked about, and that brought up that we need to start having regular discussions ahead of our budget hearing in June, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Hey, government relations.
Yeah, I hope everyone got the email I sent out last week with regards to the upcoming events. I know that tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. doesn't necessarily work for everybody on the board, but those who are able to attend the legislative breakfast tomorrow, we'd love to have you. Daryl, will you be able to make that tomorrow?
We might have lost him. He texted me and said no.
Okay. Ms. George, are you going to be able to attend?
Yes. I may need to slip out a little early depending how late it runs.
Yep, feel free to leave as you need to.
I can't come.
And then, Mr. Dunford, are you?
I am not.
Okay, so there'll be 4 of us, I think. And
I
Dale-
won't be there. Did you get that?
Yeah, we heard that. And then Miss Atwood, I would imagine, wouldn't be able to make it either. So, okay. And then, those other dates, again, with regards to the, give me just a second, let me get to that email that I sent out. Does anybody have any questions on the dates or the events that we put on there? No? Okay. We'd love to have any of you who can make it. The event with the SBO officers, that one, please, the February 15th meeting, the board members and legislators lunch, that would be the one that we'd love to have as many of you as possible. If you can make that work for whatever reason, we'll be doing a nice lunch. Well, a nice box lunch, I guess is the way to phrase that. And hopefully have an opportunity to have a good discussion and just connect with our legislators while they're in the heat of their battle and express our support and help there. So that, if there were any event that it would be nice to have as many of us as possible, that would be the one, is what I think we'd like to communicate. The SBO legislator lunch, that is really an opportunity for our SBOs to connect with their legislators, allows for our SBOs to shine. You know, the reason we're here is for those students. And so that one, you're more than welcome to attend. We would like a heads up on that one in case we need to notice that if we get more than 3 individuals there. Doesn't mean we're limiting it to it. We just need to be able to notice that if we need to. So, and then the USBA, they're combining the district day on the Hill, and we're not sure. Did we ever get any information? Do we have anybody from our district invited?
I did not get information on that, but I don't believe we have anyone from our district invited to that.
Okay, so,
Last I heard, like I said, they were doing an alphabetical order thing, and we're in the middle, so.
do you have more information on the details of that day? Do you want to share that?
Yeah. So Legislative Day on the Hill, so this is sponsored by Utah School Boards Association, so school board members from across the state are invited to that. They are doing, this is a tentative agenda, it hasn't been finalized yet, but the plan is for a continental breakfast at 9 in the Rotunda, that legislators will be invited down to. 9:30 welcome and some speeches. 10:30, we can set up visits with legislators or attend committee meetings. And then a lunch at 12 o'clock, and then the performances are from 12 to 1. And then 1:30, you could also do legislator visits and committee meetings. So,
But we're not invited to that?
yes, all board members are invited to USBA Day on the Hill. And it's kind of structured so that there's lots of different opportunities, like if you want to come early to the breakfast and meet with your legislators and then leave, you can, or if you're not coming up till later, you can do the lunch with them. So it's structured with a lot of flexibility. And what I will need to know is if we have board members that are planning to attend that, so that we can set up some time with our legislators. As Mr. Young said, I think as a board, if you can only pick one day, I would pick the 15th, because that's going to be, dedicated to just our board and our legislators. But if you're also interested and able to come on the 22nd, let me know, and we'll figure out, what times we want to be up there, and also set up some time to meet with legislators. It's the same day as our board meeting too, so bear that in mind.
And then the other activity that all board member, well, there's a couple that all board members are invited to attend. Every Friday, the Utah School Board Association will be hosting a joint legislative committee, is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Where they talk about various education bills. That's going to be held Fridays at, is it 10 or 11 a.m.?
11 to 1.
11 to 1 at the Granite School District offices. And we don't have a vote, our USBA representative has a vote on what USBA is going to pursue or not, but we as individuals do not. And so that would be more of informational, and you can contribute to the dialogue and the conversation. But those are from 11 to 1 there at the Granite. And Tracy and Marilyn are planning on attending that regularly. So feel free to contact them if you want to be a part of that. In addition to that, the Western Growth Coalition, which is elected representatives and chambers of commerce of communities on the west side of the Salt Lake County, they do a Saturday morning meeting. This year, it typically has been held at various hospitals, and they do a breakfast. But this year, they'll be doing those virtually. Last year, they did it virtually, and it was spotty. Is that fair to say? So if you have a desire to attend those, some legislators come and share what bills they're working on. If you're interested in attending those, let us know. We can get you the link and that information. And I think that's, everyone saw the final version of the legislative priorities. We'll be sharing that tomorrow morning. And any other questions?
Boy, a lot going on. That was quite the list.
Yeah.
'Tis the season.
I wish Marilyn and Tracy the best of luck moving forward. And that will be my final report.
Thank you. And I'll just echo again on those JLC meetings. I go as the voting member, and Marilyn and I have always gone to that, but they are having it at the Granite District office this year instead of the Capitol, because there isn't no longer a room at the Capitol big enough, but it also opens up room for more people. So if board members are interested, let me know. I can get you the agenda for whatever day you're coming up, or you can carpool with us. Okay. Nikki, do you have anything? Okay, Daryl.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
I have two more things to add. One is the Jordan Education Foundation's Donor Appreciation Luncheon is Thursday, January 27th at 11:30. You should have all received invitations to that. And I'm here seeing some head nods. Okay. I will forward it No?
to you. Yeah, I specifically checked to make sure you were on the list. So that's
What email?
interesting.
When would it have come?
Probably a week or two ago. Okay. All right, well, I will follow up on that. I will make sure you get the invitation, and it is January 27th at 11:30. And it's our donor appreciation lunch, and all board members, as we, direct a donation to the foundation of resources to cover staff. We are an important donor and invited to attend that luncheon. If you have the opportunity to come, it is a really neat event. It just gives you a great flavor for all of the different projects that the foundation is doing and ways that they help and support our schools.
Dr. Godfrey, am I correct in noting that that's also the lunch with SBO presidents?
Working on that. We should have that scheduled tomorrow. We're looking at that morning
That morning?
of the 27th.
Right, so that's the same day.
So I haven't sent that out because we've known that we had to change that.
Okay.
So I
Let
know
me
we talked about that in the last meeting, but I'll let the board know tomorrow once we finalize that.
Thank you.
Does that give you the notice you need, Nikki?
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, I already have things scheduled that day, so
If it was,
keep trying.
how far out do we need to be?
I mean, probably a
would the next-
minimum of 2 weeks. I mean, in this case, it's IEP meetings. It is what it is there.
We're a little over 2 weeks. That's why I was hoping we would make it. If it were the next week, would that work?
Yes, depending on is it always the same date of a week? Like the day of a week, not date?
Usually it's a Monday. It's been a Monday.
It's okay, I'll just keep trying whenever you send it. No stress.
Okay, and then the other thing I just wanted to update the board on is we just did our 4th takedown of the Olympia Hills property. I think 4 years ago, we, as a board, agreed to purchase 100 acres in Olympia Hills, but we broke that into 5 segments. So every year we've been taking down another 20 acres, and we just did our 4th of 5 takedowns of that. But the thing I wanted to let you know is part of that agreement was that once the development, is master planned, then schools will be moved to where they are needed. And so the land we've been buying has just been all consolidated right down on the east end of it, and they're needing to start build on the east end of it. So part of this takedown also included moving our land now up to the west end of it.
Wait,
So we're
hold on.
ready.
The west end of the parcel or the west end of the property?
The Olympia development.
Sorry,
Does that make sense? The land that
It-
Olympia owns.
that was the no skid on the bottom of my computer. Sorry.
Yeah, it makes sense, but
We've
I
always
think
just had
that's a
placeholder
bigger deal
land.
than just an FYI.
Also,
If they're going to already start, so is it in conjunction with the chunk that we already have? It's just moving it to the west side of that chunk or the west side of that entire property?
no, we've always just had a placeholder.
But it's been a specific description. So I'm asking, so we had 60, we took down another 20.
20.
That 20, is it contiguous with the other 60?
It moves the whole 80 up
Up where?
to the other end of Olympia.
Is that still a placeholder,
Uh-huh.
or is that a final resting?
Well, but that's
Always been a placeholder.
That's fine that it's a placeholder, but I don't want to say anything I regret, so I'm gonna back off of that. But I think
Okay.
that's a bigger deal than just an FYI,
Okay.
and would
Also agree with that. I
would
think it
love
needs
to
be
know
said.
what that thought process was that didn't cross or didn't. Yeah, I need to.
Just
Carol
That-
was speaking to that.
that he also agrees with that. It was in our, it's not a change to what we agreed to 4 years ago. That's in our, it is in keeping with what's in our contract and what we voted on 4 years ago.
This is the first time I'm hearing about it. I think there's a common courtesy element, and I'll need to get some more details.
Okay, anyone else have any, let's go to the superintendent then. I covered all the board members, correct? All right, superintendent.
Just to thank you again to all of our employees who are making this work through difficult times.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. All right. That is the end of our study session. Thank you to all of those who have joined us tonight. I will need a motion now to go into closed session for character and competence of individuals, property, and negotiations.
Dr. Godfrey, do we need to add potential litigation?
Yes.
And potential litigation.
So can we, I'm sorry, I was on a text. Character and competence?
Character and competence, property, potential litigation, and negotiations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here. I'll make a motion that we go into a closed session for character and competence of individuals, property, negotiations, and potential litigation.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. George, second by Ms. Richards to go into closed session for character and competence of individuals, property, potential litigation, and negotiations. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion was unanimous. We'll go into closed session. Thank you.